Nikola Tesla. Luminaries.
Tesla traveled back to Manhattan with T.C. Martin, Francis Lynn Stetson, Darius Auckland Mills, and John Hayes Hammond's brother, Richard Hammond, who was considering placing Tesla turbines at Adam in California. A Runyon symposium was being coordinated by Martin and I.Q. Johnson under the auspices of the Century, and Tesla would help in the preparations, but disagreements with Tom Edison, Elihu Thomson, and Michael Pupin had peaked, and Tesla declined an invitation to a dinner of all the participants.
"I cannot explain, but it is really impossible for me to join the company," he said. Edison was about to join forces with Marconi.
Thomson was still piloting Tesla's induction motor, Pupin, the Tesla oscillators. Stetson, as Morgan's Attorney General, could smooth over the bumps in GE's attempts to lay the groundwork for a pooling of patents with Westinghouse. GE would get the AC polyphase system in exchange for the Vanderpool-Trotty patents, but he could never erase the growing vendetta against Tesla by a number of key men in his industry. This was a particularly difficult time for Martin, and so a gap between Martin and Tesla began to form. At the end of January, Tesla sponsored another lavish feast followed by our tour of his lab. He invited John Jacob Astor and his stunning wife, Averwilling, and Mr. and Mrs. Stanford White. Due to the late hour, Lady Astor was dreadfully disappointed to pass on the electrical pyrotechnics. However, White and company were able to take advantage of the entire affair.
"My dear Tesla," wrote White, "I cannot tell you how impressed I was the other night at your laboratory, and how delighted I was to be there."
Signing the letter, "Affectionately yours," White also congratulated Tesla on his address at Buffalo, which was so full of beautiful thoughts. This was White's second visit to the lab, and his feelings for Tesla continued to grow. March 28th, 1896. Dear Luca, happen to be free this evening.
If you have visitors, ordinary mortals, I will not come.
If you have Paderewski, Runyon, or Mrs. Anthony, I will come.
Yours sincerely, T.G.I. Tesla, great inventor.
The time, and very little of that career, will be mostly an eternity. John Moo. Another frequent visitor to the Johnson household was the conservationist and poet John Moo, who, a few years earlier, had taken Johnson on our tour of Yosemite, what Moo called the great creations of the Almighty.
On his trips to New York, Moo typically dressed in a seasoned three-piece suit complete with a gold watch dangling from a high-vest pocket, but his demeanor was mountain man all the way. 60 years old, still in his prime. His hair was grey and long, and his face adorned with a beard that extended to his navel like scraggy sagebrush. His eyes may have sparked in different directions because of an early industrial accident, but his gaze proclaimed the aura of an enlightened one. Having dined with Moo at the Johnsons during the holiday season, and having invited the naturalist back to his lab, Tesla later told Catherine that he appreciated Moo's contribution to society.
"I am always grateful to Moo," he wrote, "for his magnificent description of Yosemite Valley, which a Avery threw in one breath."
A founder of the Sierra Club with Johnson, Moo was, in a sense, Tesla's doppelganger. Moo was a somewhat unkempt naturalist who spent most of his time in the forest, but part of him longed for civilization. And Tesla, ever the fastidious and smartly dressed metropolitan, spent most of his life in the city, but longed for the mountains. A former inventor himself, having fashioned an award-winning bed that toppled the sleeper out onto the floor in the morning, Moo was not opposed, in principle, to human progress, only to callous obliteration of the precious wonders of the planet.
Since Tesla's inventions sought to utilize renewable energy and minimize destruction of natural resources, in that sense, both Tesla and Moo shared a common end. Moo's writings remain his most powerful statement to the spiritual path. The importance of his friendship with Tesla helped support the modern concepts conservation and ecological thinking. Placing it all in perspective, Moo wrote, "Who wouldn't be a mountaineer? Up here all the world's prizes seem nothing."
Had met Paderewski for the first time at a dinner at the Johnson Salon in April of 1896. After an invitation from Robert, Tesla wrote back, "Hope that Miss Amy and Mr. Paderewski will come." He was referring to Paderewski's trademark, a lush, unbridled mane which flared above his head as he played the piano during his concerts.
Referring to this first meeting, Johnson wrote, "Like Tesla, Paderewski has a marvelous mind, which is a storehouse of knowledge on all sorts of topics." Johnson, who had written a poem about the virtuoso, likened Paderewski's music to choiring angels in paradise. Latter-day Prime Minister of Poland, Paderewski was the highest-paid performer of the decade. Richard Watson Gilder, editor-in-chief at the Century, frequently invited. In Paderewski's words, all the great visiting artists, musicians, distinguished writers, sculptors, painters, and politicians who came to America, a connoisseur of art and of life, Gilder appreciated and recognized at once the unusual in everything in people as well.
Through Gilder, Johnson met many luminaries, and through Johnson, Tesla followed.
At this same time, in the spring of 1896, Tesla and the Johnsons were busy reading Rudyard Kipling's recently published Jungle Book. The stories of Kipling's are charm itself. Tesla wrote Mrs. Philippoff, "I think Rikki Tikki Tavi is the best." 2 days later, a party for Kipling was organized at the Johnson home. "Sorry, I cannot come to dinner," Tesla wrote, "but will show up as soon as possible afterwards." Kipling, who was 30 at the time, had purchased a house from his brother-in-law in Brattleboro, Vermont, where he had written the Jungle Book, and now he had come to New York to help promote it. Much like Twain, Kipling was known as a globetrotter, having visited such places as Ceylon, India, New Zealand, and Australia. After the party and his stay in New York, Kipling traveled to England and then on to South Africa. On the boat trip over, he ran into John Hayes Hammond, and when he reached Cape Town, he talked Cecil Rhodes into giving him Arthur of the Front Lines of the Boer War. Upon his return to New York in early 1899, he spent time with Tesla before another formal dinner in his honor was prepared by the Johnsons. The following letter, although written 3 years later, reflects the kind of friendship the two men shared. "Dear Mrs. Philippoff, what is the matter with Inkspiller Kipling? He actually dared to invite me to dine in an obscure hotel where I would be sure to get hair and cockroaches in the soup. On the very day of the party, Kipling rocked the world, for he was taken ill with typhoid and nearly died. Catherine would spend the next few months helping to take care of the ailing novelist." Kipling survived the ordeal, but tragically, his daughter Josephine perished. He was in such a weakened condition that his wife was forced to hide the young girl's death from him until he was well enough to be able to handle the news. As the newspapers carried daily reports of Kipling's condition on their front pages, the world mourned the young girl's loss, just as they rejoiced with his recovery. Having experienced family tragedy in his own life, Tesla hoped that the death would not impair Kipling's ability to write. "I am delighted Kipling has recovered," Tesla told the Johnsons. "I just hope there will be no evil consequences except a sorrow, though hard to bear." Philosophically, Tesla added, "It will probably give his works more dignity and depth. Do not just drift with the mob. Invite you to join me in a month's worship with nature in the high temples of the Great Sierra Crown beyond our holy Yosemite. It will cost you nothing save end of Nikola Tesla."
Luminaries, thank you for watching.